leave this fiscal year with a deficit, but I don't think we're going to achieve a balanced budget in every individual department. And I think we have to, weigh our options carefully of how we move forward. And I would assume that staff is keeping careful count of what savings we are making. And at the end of going through this, I think they'll be able to say how close we are to our target savings and to a balanced budget for the current year.
Well, so far this morning, we had a little over $1 million gap, and we've got $37,000 out of the auditor's office. I'm keeping score here. That's where we are. We got a long ways to go. Supervisor Smith.
Yes, I think that we still need to look at, as the chair has said, even with the consideration of 5 positions, and the director has already stated he sees that structurally he's going to have to make these reductions for next year anyway. That was one of my first questions for him. Mm-hmm. So I think that he needs to look for some amount of salary savings, probably approaching reducing his net county cost by, I believe the chair said it was approximately 50%, including alternative 2. But I think what I would like him to do is examine specifically which positions would, the eliminations of which positions will not hamper the ability of the department to gain revenue, which is what Supervisor McCowan stated. And I believe at least one of those positions is for sure code enforcement. And we really can't hamper the conclusion of a number of these important planning documents. So if he could take those comments under consideration and come back with a reduction of positions, he's going to be needing to do this going forward anyway. So if we get going on it, it will create the salary savings, and at least, I think he's got to at least come up with the 50%, and alternative 2 gets us there. But we need to have the specifics on which positions and why he's recommending those and which ones will not hamper the revenue.
So to move this along, could we give him direction to come back with a plan of option number 2 of how it actually affects the boots on the ground? Can we agree to that, or do you want to discuss it further? Huh? Is that a general consensus that you'll come back in the near future with a short presentation of actually what option 2 will do, what layoffs will be and whatnot?
I could, at the board's direction, bring back a list of specific positions for the board's consideration, if that's what the board.
Allison?
I was just going to say, Allison Glassy, Assistant CEO. I think this is taking place in the context of our budget workshop and discussion here. So I think direction from the board as to the options that you want to consider, option 1, option 2, and asking that option 2 be further refined and brought back. That makes sense. I would point out you followed a similar process with HHSA, where there was an initial discussion of what it would look like, authorization of an up to amount, and now you're finally getting to the actual classification. So I think that although it might take place over a shorter time frame, you would be following the same process. Also, as we complete all the departmental presentations, then we, the executive office, will kind of recapitulate, bring it all back and give you the net amount and how all of that fits together and how it will fit together with regard to the 2009-10 budget as well.
Okay, so that's the direction of the board,
Yes.
to come back with option number 2. What do you think the time frame will be on this?
I think, if I could just say, I think that it will depend on the direction we get from you this afternoon as to whether or not some of it gets completed this afternoon, and then what would get carried over to the next board meeting.
Well, we're not asking for a plan back from Nash today.
Right.
But probably within the next 30 days or something, you'll come
Well,
back.
I would say the next board meeting, we would want to move
Okay.
along.
So with that, thank you, Nash.
Thank you, but it's my understanding that I could go ahead and implement alternative 1 at the direction of the board.
Which includes number 2, exactly, up till option 2.
Right.
Yeah,
So
right.
alternative 1, which allows me to go ahead and cancel the contract with MIG
Yeah,
and all the others. All right. Thank
yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if I could just say, option 1's going to be implemented, option 2 is going to be brought back with further detail for board action at the next meeting.
Exactly. Supervisor Smith?
And I think then it's up to the director to come up with, do these need to be just short-term layoffs? Does he want it to be fewer positions that will be for the long-term picture? He's going to have a lot of flexibility in assessing his operations mindful, of course, the board's direction with respect to the revenue side, and figuring out where he thinks that we best go. And I think it absolutely needs to come back at the next board meeting, and we need to have the budget discussion on every agenda until we move into budget 09-10.
Well, I think we're doing the right thing. We're giving our department heads directions in which, they're coming forward with recommendations. It's up to us to pick, these options. I appreciate the format that you come with the recommendations, Nash, and
Thank you, sir.
thank you very much.
And it's very clear, if these layoffs don't come from his department, they're gonna go up on the wall or on a
Yeah.
piece of paper, and they're gonna go to another department.
Right.
So
Yes.
that's the part that needs to be
Yes.
said.
Thank you, Nash. Okay, grand jury, our next department.
Finley Williams for the grand jury. As I discussed in our previous meeting in February, the end of January, the grand jury anticipated this precise situation occurring as early as June, July of last year. We took what steps we had available to us to make adjustments in how we were going to spend our money, and we tried to save money. The end result of it is we've actually managed to stretch what was an inadequate budget into March. Unfortunately, as of the end of March, we will have exhausted all those portions of our budget that we can spend that are not fixed expenses. I have addressed this problem with the courts, specifically with Judge Henderson, who is going to be discussing it with Judge Mayfield, as to whether or not the grand jury can continue spending any money past the point that that budget is exhausted. That is where the grand jury stands at this point. We have no place to cut. The $15,000 that was in the travel budget did not even begin to cover those expenses we could easily anticipate having. When you have 5 jurors from the coast and 3 jurors from the North County, and you have a reimbursement rate of 58.5 cents a mile, you're going to have that happen with $15,000. We needed to start out with 45 and we couldn't. I am sorry. I don't know what else we can do at this point to save money. It is now, as far as legally is concerned, it's in the hands of the court as to whether or not the grand jury will continue operations after the end of March.
I got a quick question. How many
Yes.
members of the grand jury total?
There are 19.
Well, if our Supreme Court that makes major decisions on all America is only 9 members, could we reduce the grand jury to a 9-member pool?
Actually, no. That is set forth in the state constitution, Supervisor. We have no control over that.
Well, should that be something that maybe we should look at as a legislative remedy?
It would require a constitutional amendment, is my understanding. And you could look at it.
to me,
I'm not here to advise you on what you can and cannot look
No,
at.
it makes more sense. I never did understand why we have a jury pool of 12 when we have a national, our Supreme Court of the United States is only 9 members.
Because the citizens of the state of California, in their wisdom, the last time they had a constitutional convention, decided that these numbers were the appropriate numbers for the size county that we have.
Yeah.
County council may have further information she could give you on that, but that's my understanding, and if I'm wrong, please correct me.
Well, it's been my statement that the state government, and we're going to have to come up with a new way of doing business, or we're going to be out of business, to look at everything, whether it's state mandates, whether it's constitutional amendment or whatever. We're going, in order to survive, we're going to have to look at everything. And I just thought maybe that might be an option. But
It certainly might be.
apparently, under this process, it's not an option for today.
Hi, Wendy Roberts. I'm also on the panel. I'm Finley's pro tem. I actually brought some information that I'd just like to share with you guys. Connie Corbell of the Mendocino Beacon did a very thorough investigative piece on the grand jury after the last discussion of the budget. And there's an editorial with which you might or might not agree, but there's also an article that lays out all of the